Tonight, total siege. Closed borders and falling bombs choke off Gaza as Hamas fires back and new atrocities are revealed. And uncharted territory.
We need to make sure we're sending a message to people all throughout the world that the House is open.
House Republicans scrambled to replace their ousted speaker, plus the inflationary impact of war in the Middle East.
That first playthrough, that bleed through, is initially going to be into the oil prices.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Israel prepares for a ground offensive as unrelenting airstrikes pound Gaza. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And good evening in Washington. I'm Jenna Browder. Hamas under siege in Gaza as Israel mounts a massive ground invasion and the two sides trade rocket fire over the southern border.
In a major new development highlighting the connection between Hamas and Iran, the U.S. and Qatar have agreed to stop Tehran from tapping $6 billion in funds recently transferred to the regime as part of a prisoner swap. That agreement led to the release of 5 detained Americans from Iran last month. Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes continue to pound Gaza as Hamas fires a barrage of rockets into Israel. The death toll on both sides of the war now over 2,700 and climbing. Israel mobilizing forces some 300,000 troops along the Gaza border ahead of a ground offensive into Hamas-controlled territory. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today called the terror group an enemy of civilization.
The massacring of young people in an outdoor music festival, the butchering of entire families, the murder of parents in front of their children and the murder of children in front of their parents, the burning of people alive, the beheadings, the kidnappings.
Israel warning the full-scale attack would not pause to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza Strip until all the more than 150 hostages in Hamas custody have been released.
We've decided not to show them here, but in a social media post on X, the Prime Minister's office published some extremely graphic images highlighting the savagery of the Hamas terrorist attacks. The photos show the charred and bloodied bodies of babies.
Well, tomorrow, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin will be in Israel following on the heels of the United States chief diplomat, whose visit highlights America's strong support for the Jewish state. It's something Secretary Antony Blinken underscored today in a joint press conference with Prime Minister Netanyahu.
And now, with at least 27 Americans confirmed dead, the Pentagon is shifting more U.S. military resources to the Middle East. National Security Correspondent Caitlin Burke is following the story. Caitlin?
John, Jenna, the U.S. is backing up its words of support for Israel with action. The first shipment of American munitions has arrived along with several warships. And according to the Biden administration, more help is coming.
The message that I bring to Israel is this. You may be strong enough on your own to defend yourself, but as long as America exists, you will never, ever have to. We will always be there by your side.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken repeating the warning issued by President Biden. The U.S. has Israel's back, so if you're thinking of taking advantage of their current crisis, don't. Blinken, who has family members that survived the Holocaust, taking time Thursday to meet with survivors of the Hamas attack.
We were saved by miracle, but there are friends that we love that weren't. Thank you very much.
We're thinking of them and trying to do everything we can. So
I know.
We want to bring them home.
Thank you.
In terms of a military response, as of Wednesday, the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group is already in the region, and the Air Force has increased the number of fighter planes.
Our support for Israel is rock solid. We're working urgently to get Israel what it needs to defend itself, including munitions and Iron Dome interceptors.
Both Blinken and Defense Secretary Austin reaffirming that as Israel's needs evolve, the Biden administration will work with Congress to make sure they're met. Nathan Sales, former ambassador at large and coordinator for counterterrorism, says the U.S. cannot afford to allow Israel to lose this war.
If Israel loses, we're next. For Iran, Israel is the little Satan and the United States is the great Satan. And we have every interest in helping our ally in the Middle East, our great ally Israel, on the front lines of this conflict. We are linked in our interests, we are linked in our values, and we share common enemies. We need to do what we can to help them win.
There's bipartisan support in Congress for Israel's right to defend itself. The House Foreign Affairs Committee proposing a resolution with over 400 co-sponsors from both sides of the aisle, expressing unity behind Israel and condemnation of Hamas. Still, the passage of bills like this and others depend on a speedy election of a House Speaker. John, Jenna?
So, Caitlin, you just mentioned the broad bipartisan support in Congress and the White House response. What about the 2024 candidates on the campaign trail? How are they addressing the situation in the Middle East?
John, in comments at a gathering of supporters Wednesday, former President Donald Trump, the leading Republican contender, said under his future administration, the U.S. will stand with Israel. But then he also made comments critical of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, bringing up a story from 2020.
You know, I did have a bad experience with Israel, though. When we took out Soleimani, it was us and Israel working as a group. And the night before it happened, I got a call that Israel will not be participating in this attack. I'll never forget that Bibi Netanyahu let us down.
The White House called Trump's comments dangerous and unhinged. White House Deputy Press Secretary Andrew Bates saying this is a time for all of us to stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel against unadulterated evil. John?
All right, CBN National Security Correspondent Caitlin Burke. Thank you so much, Caitlin. Well, here with us now is Eli Kohanim, former Deputy U.S. Envoy to combat anti-Semitism and a CBN News contributor. Eli, welcome to you. So we learned today that the U.S. and Qatar have agreed to block Iran from accessing that $6 billion in funds while authorities look into the links between Hamas and Iran as it relates to the attack in Israel. Your reaction to this, and also maybe for those who may not understand, can you give context into how Qatar is involved in this?
Sure. What's happening right now is that the U.S. is part of the hostage deal that they brokered almost a month ago now. We had the release of American hostages from Iranian authorities, and we were also supposed to release $6 billion of sanctioned oil revenues of the Iranians, and so that $6 billion of the formerly sanctioned funds is sitting in Qatar. And so today, the United States, the Biden administration, and the Qataris have worked out a quiet deal that Qatar will not be releasing that $6 billion to the Islamic Republic for now, as far as we know. And so, you know, look, this is good news that the Iranians are not going to get this $6 billion at the moment. But I have to note that under the Biden administration, the Islamic Republic is $80 billion richer. They have been making oil sales to the Chinese that the Biden administration has not been enforcing U.S. sanctions since the Biden administration came into office. And so, you know, I'm happy for this news. But I have to stress that the Iranian economy has really been growing and strengthened under the Biden administration. And it's given the regime that much more funds and money in order to be able to support their terror proxies, Hamas being chief among them.
Yeah, Ellie, at the same time, the White House, the Department of Defense, and the State Department have really all had the same message to anyone who's thinking of taking advantage of the situation. They say don't. How do you expect Iran will react as this war unfolds, Ellie?
It's hard to predict exactly how the Islamic Republic of Iran is going to react, but what Iran's strategy to date has been is to use its terror proxies to encircle and attack Israel, and therefore to try to keep the Iranian homeland safe from reprisal. So right now we're seeing the heinous, vicious terrorist attacks and atrocities that Hamas committed against Israel over the weekend. We know that Hezbollah in the north in Lebanon is sitting there with 150,000 rockets ready to rain down on Israel. And we know that Iran has boots on the ground in Syria. So Iran has all these terror proxies, again, encircling Israel. And so it might make sense for them to try to have their other proxies start getting into this war without wanting to get their own own, forces directly involved.
Ellie, just a few seconds left. You were part of the historic Abraham Accords under the Trump administration. How do you see the Accords playing into what's happening now in just a few seconds?
We see the United Arab Emirates has very strongly condemned Hamas, and we know that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was in talks with Israel to make their own peace with Israel, and that would have been an extension of the Abraham Accords. Sadly, everything is on hold right now with this brutal war that was waged on Israel.
All right.
All right.
Ellie Kohanim, thank you so much. We're going to have to leave it there. Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
On Capitol Hill, the United States House is entering a second week without a speaker. Majority Leader Steve Scalise is the party's nominee, but not all Republicans are on board.
And that creates a real challenge for the Louisiana congressman. Hillary Powell is here now with more on where the speaker search goes from here. Hillary.
Well, John Scalise just does not have enough of the votes to secure the majority and to get the gavel. With the House currently in recess, it's really unclear if there will even be a speaker vote before the day's end. Republicans really want to prevent the hot mess House floor fight seen back in January when now ousted Representative Republican Kevin McCarthy of California became Speaker. Scalise needs to secure more than 100 votes from Judiciary Committee Chairman Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio. Scalise beat Jordan in a 113-99 secret ballot vote. Jordan is now backing his rival.
I think it's important we come together, and I've offered to nominate Steve on the House floor.
We need to make sure we're sending a message to people all throughout the world that the House is open and doing the people's business.
Abroad of this leadership limbo.
Well, the chamber really can't function without a leader, so U.S. aid to Israel and Ukraine, two countries currently facing war, is really limited. Democrats are primed to oppose any Republican nominee, really. House Minority Leader, New York Representative Hakeem Jeffries, easily snagged their nomination. He's now urging House Republicans to really come together, saying the American people and also American allies abroad are watching.
Israel needs its closest friend and ally in the world, the United States of America, to stand with Israel in this urgent time of need. The inability of House Republicans to get their act together, even when they themselves, by their own rules, have elected a speaker nominee, speaks to the broader chaos and dysfunction and extremism that has characterized the do-nothing Republican Congress from the very beginning. House Democrats have also made clear that we are ready, willing, and able to find bipartisan common ground.
Okay, the next deadline to fund the government is November 17th before yet another possible federal closure. House Chaplain Margaret Gruen-Kibben prayed today that love be the aim for both sides in this chamber. John and Jenna.
All right, Hillary, thank you very much.
Thanks, Hillary. The global economy, keeping a close eye on what's happening in the Middle East, what the war could mean for the economic outlook here at home when Faith Nation returns.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN News Watch. Thanks for joining us. Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN News Watch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come with...
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Welcome back. As the world awaits an Israeli ground assault in Gaza, there is growing concern over what an expanded war means for people's wallets. As Gary Lane reports, the situation in the Middle East could make for a volatile global economy.
As a major player in the global economy, the United States is not immune to the economic ripples caused by geopolitical conflicts. The stock market has already experienced fluctuations as investors react to uncertainty surrounding the Israel-Hamas war. Of primary concern is the global oil market. As fighting escalates, there could be supply disruptions, followed by a spike in oil prices. Brandon Pizzurro is the incoming president of Guidestone Funds, America's largest faith-based mutual fund company. He believes consumers may experience higher gasoline prices in the days ahead.
When you have one of these, tremendous, shock events, as you might call them, is people need to initially first digest that. And that first playthrough, that bleed through, is initially going to be into the oil prices. And that's where people are initially going to feel that pain. And one of those first things that people think about when they say, is my cost of living going up? And pain at the pump is certainly something we're going to have to grapple with for a little bit of time here.
Any direct Iranian intervention could lead to blockades and supply bottlenecks in the oil-rich Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz. Less oil availability would directly affect transportation and production, potentially leading to increased prices for goods and services. In turn, a likely jump in inflation could hamper consumer purchasing power.
Wars in general are inflationary, which really starts to kind of go against this disinflationary environment that the Fed and other global central banks are looking for. So you see that inflation rise because the cost of production. Oil certainly is an inflationary measure.
This week, Wall Street investors nervously watching Middle East developments found a bright spot. Defense-related stock prices climbed after the Pentagon pledged to send advanced weapons to Israel. The bottom line, what happens in Gaza doesn't stay in Gaza. The war is a complex web that extends elsewhere. The United States, with its interconnected economy, is not immune to the repercussions. And with a ground war now almost certain, global markets are likely to remain volatile. Pizzurro urges people not to panic and instead respond with prayer.
Any time of distress like this, the only way to turn is to God and to think about what is at play. God, of course, knows exactly what's at play, and it's for us to rely on Him and put our faith in the Lord. The Lord also calls us to be bold and brave in our faith and standing pat with those who we ally ourselves with. So praying for Israel, praying for the people, praying for a peaceful resolution is certainly what we need to do, but not being fearful.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Gary. Well, as the fragile economy faces the new crisis of war in the Middle East, already high inflation is proving sticky here in the United States. The Consumer Price Index rising 3.7% when compared to this time last year, according to new figures from the Labor Department. On a monthly basis, inflation decelerated from 0.6% to 0.4%. Core inflation, however, remains steady at 0.3% month over month. The latest CPI data raises the prospect of another rate hike from the Federal Reserve, with the Fed's efforts to contain inflation potentially complicated by the Mideast war.
And for more on this, let's bring in Mark Hamrick, Washington Bureau Chief and Senior Economic Analyst for Bankrate. Mark, welcome. So let's start there with inflation. The Consumer Price Index up 3.7% year over year. Put this into perspective for us, Mark, and what it means for consumers.
Good to be with you, John and Jenna. Thank you. That 3.7% increase year over year is unchanged from the previous month and down significantly from the increase of 9.1% in June of last year. But that's a long way away from the Federal Reserve's 2% target. We do have a Federal Reserve meeting upcoming. I think this doesn't necessarily rock the world of the Federal Reserve. But when you look at the components that added to the latest increase, they include energy, they include shelter costs. Food costs remain up in equal fashion with what the headline increase in the CPI was. Food costs up 3.7% over the past year. So all of these are irritants and cause real pressure for households.
So, Mark, we learned Social Security recipients will get a 3.2% increase in their benefits next year in 2024 as a cost of living adjustment. That is less of an increase than what they saw this year. How do you read all of that?
So that's part of the would-be normalization of the economy here, John. As you say, last year we had an increase announced at this time of 8.7%. That was after that spike in inflation, and the previous year was 5.9%. So the average over the past 20 years for Social Security recipients, essentially their pay raise, has been 2.6%. This translates to somewhere on the order of $50 to $60 a month. Not a lottery jackpot, but it helps.
Yeah. Mark, I want to ask you about the war in Israel and oil prices. As Gary reported, what happens in Gaza doesn't stay in Gaza. How high do you see gas prices going, and what kind of timeline are we looking at here?
I think it's impossible to predict right now. Actually, we've seen crude oil prices come up on Monday and have settled back down. It really depends on whether this conflict does widen, whether it impacts the supply of crude oil. And if that happens, then it's anybody's guess, but certainly higher, because we're really talking about damaging the supply of oil at a time when it's already been impacted by limits on production and refinery capacity here in the United States this year. That would be really a death blow to this fight against inflation, aside from obviously the tragic humanitarian aspects of this conflict.
Mark Hamrick, we wish we had more time with you. Mark, with Bankrate, we always appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
The rise of religious nuns. When we come back, the surprising statistics on people walking away from organized faith.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Catholic Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Saturday night at 6 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Welcome back. For some, avoiding organized religion doesn't necessarily mean denouncing God. That's based on a new study on religious nuns in the United States. According to an Associated Press NORC Center poll, about a third, 33% of American adults don't identify with a faith group, making them what's called the so-called nuns. Surprisingly, however, among religious nuns, 43% say they actually believe in God.
We have 3 types of nuns: atheists, who are the ones who say God does not exist; agnostics are people who say that we can't know if God exists or not; and then a third group is called nothing in particular. And this group is actually the fastest growing religious group in America today. Nothing in particulars are definitely less religious than Catholics or Protestants or Jews, but they're a whole lot more religious than atheists or agnostics are.
Interesting. Overall, about 79% of American adults say they believe in a higher power.
In Idaho, the battle over abortion is entering a new phase after a federal appeals court temporarily halted the state's ban on all abortions. The ban includes an exception for saving the mother's life. The hold reverses an earlier decision by 3 judges allowing the ban to go into effect. At issue is whether emergency room physicians will be shielded from prosecution for providing, quote, stabilizing care that could include an abortion. Now, a larger panel of 11 judges of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco are set to reconsider the case.
Coming up, a song of hope from the Holy Land.
If anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old is gone, and the new has come. Has Jesus changed your life? We'd love to hear your story and celebrate it by sharing it with others. You never know how your story could change someone's life.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link. Tuesday morning at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
And finally tonight we end with a little bit of more hopeful tone. Amid the scenes of death and destruction, an unexpected song, hopeful song in Israel.
Neighbors opening windows and standing on balconies, joining together to sing Israel's national anthem. Israel's national song is called the Hatikva. That translates to the hope.
You know, I'm sure it's very encouraging. It's very reminiscent of the early days of the pandemic when people would get pots and pans to thank all the medical professionals. And of course, very different situation, but very hopeful for the,
yeah. All right, we're going to leave it on that note this evening.
Thank you so much for watching. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Good night.